about Stop the Pop, the podcast where we, that's me, Craig,
and me, Matty,
do a deep dive on a song from the 90s or noughties.
So, Craig, it's season 3. Welcome back.
Yep.
What song are we doing this week?
Okay, we are doing H and Claire, All Out of Love. So, what are your immediate thoughts?
The step song that never was. Best song H and Claire recorded. And just a brilliant pop song. But before we get into me gushing about how amazing this song is, who are H and Claire? And why are we talking about this song? Which sentence that I just love saying.
So, H and Claire are two members of Steps. In
Never heard
2001, I don't know if you've heard this story, but in 2001, at the end of the Gold Tour, on the last night of the tour, they handed in their notice. They gave letters to the rest of the group saying, we quit. And then in 2002, they launched as a duo. And this song was their third single. It was released just before their debut album. And we're talking about it because there is so much to talk about. That's why.
I mean, where did you say it came in the end third in the album campaign? Was there anything about that single that we should know?
I mean, it was... Well, we'll talk about the song itself, because the song is quite interesting, but the song was a double A-side.
It was a double A-side. There we go.
It was double A-side with Beauty and the Beast cover of the Celine Dion song. That accompanied... So Disney, in the early noughties, went through this weird phase where they were re-releasing their classic movies on DVDs, and to promote them they were getting local acts that were popular to record covers, and H and Claire recorded Beauty and the Beast. Now, we won't talk about Beauty and the Beast very much, but it has been said, not necessarily by me, but I'm sure it has been said, that their version is stunning, and possibly even the definitive version of that song. Now, I'm not saying that I said that, but it might have been said at some point.
So before we talk about All Out of Love, this is why I wanted to say, because I have to mention Beauty and the Beast, because I actually think it's a really lovely cover version. But what I am obsessed with is this story about how the last thing they ever did as H and Claire was an ill-fated performance of Beauty and the Beast at Disneyland, which they were supposed to perform it. But then the track played entirely without them because no one pushed them on stage. And then it's restarted again. I'm pretty sure that that's what happened. I'm sure the boys at Glitter and Gold or some Steps fans will correct me for being wrong. But it was a double A-side with Beauty and the Beast. And it, for me, one of the questions that we always ask is, where did it fit in the album campaign? What a bizarre album campaign with the singles that were released from this album. But I kind of love the chaos. It was the third out of the 4 singles that were released, if you include both songs from the double A side. And what of diverse pop group of songs of DJ, Half a Heart, All Out of Love, Beauty and the Beast, stylistically all over the shop. So all over the shop. And I feel like at the time, I don't think many people gave this song its due and how good it was. It's not even just a little corner of the gay internet. I genuinely think it's the band itself and H and Claire itself look back on it now with such pride of this song, like obviously H and Claire do, because I think it is an absolutely incredible pop song and such, like, it's a real moment for them. And yeah, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it is a moment, and that sort of brings us on to the song. And I think the moment it was part of the problem, is because this was written by Mark Topham, Carl Twigg, and Andrew Frampton.
Yeah.
And those three songwriters are all across Steps' back catalogue. Pretty much every single that they released was co-written by at least one of those writers.
Yeah.
And so less than a year after they've quit Steps, they are releasing a song that sounds very much like... Now, I will say, I don't think this sounds like a song that would have fit onto any of the previous Steps albums, but I think this is a song that if Steps had released this as the first single from their next album, people would have been like, this is the next step in their sound, because it does take familiar elements. You've got the slow build and the big soaring chorus and Claire on the lead, but there's other elements in there. So I love the sort of, there's this like trancey beat that kicks in at some point.
Oh my God. It's amazing. I completely agree with everything you said. My notes, I said the whole thing, this feels like the embodiment of what the Fourth Steps album would have been. Obviously, the Fourth Steps album went on, is technically Light Up the World and then Tears on the Dance Floor. But like, we ignore the Christmas album. But it feels like what the Fourth Steps album should have been. And it mashes up that style of One for Sorrow, Claire-led, big vocal, slow build, but with the trancey dance elements of You'll Be Sorry and Here and Now, and what the Buzz album encapsulated. And then you've also got like the slight saffron drum element that comes from Chain Reaction. So it feels like the real continuation of what their sound would be. Once again, I always put everything I say with a disclaimer, because I am always the one that says something wrong or something that isn't true. But I believe that they weren't particularly that fussed about wanting to release it because it did sound so much like a Step song. And obviously you've got the writing team. But I love that now they have a love for it. And Claire did it on her My Wildest Dreams tour, which she did very small venues for her first solo album, but she did a version of All Out of Love. And I've watched so many videos of crowds going absolutely mental for her this rendition. I've said with the song, it does truly feel like Claire's song. Like, I love H's verse, it's great, but his vocal in the mix is very quiet. And that is not to do disservice to H. I actually do think H has developed so much as a great singer, and some of his vocals on the later albums are really strong. And he's always solid live. But in this number, my God, Claire, she's like Celine Dion. She's like screaming these massive top notes in such an incredible way. And I love the song. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, that was my. I'm using my tablet this year because I've made notes. I'm moving up in the world, very high tech. But that was my critique, and it has always been my issue. We've talked about this before with H and Claire as a duo. So we talked about this on CCTV when we did our episodes with them.
Yes, we did.
About when I said goodbye, and you could hear. I think that was the first time you heard H and Claire sing together, and it's stunning. And then they launch as a duo, and in DJ they just sing separately, and then you can't hear H at all in the mix. Half a Heart is properly mixed as a duo, they sing together. And on this one again, H is there. If you get a really decent pair of headphones and you listen to like noise cancelling, listen to it, you can hear his vocal in the mix. But you can't have H and Claire as a duo and then have Claire at 80% and H at 20%. It doesn't make sense.
Which is what
for them to do this as a duo.
A lot of the album feels like that as well. Like, I feel like there's some great stuff on it, but yeah, I do. I feel like Beauty and the Beast and Half a Heart are way more balanced in the vocal distribution.
Yeah,
and this feels very much like Claire's song. Like, like H doesn't even get the whole bridge in his bit. Claire comes in midway through the bridge to take over. Claire gets the middle eight. Claire gets the main vocal in the majority of the song. But God, she sounds good. She sounds
amazing. And
the only thing I will say about the vocals, sorry to cut you off, but the only thing I'll say about the vocals is that I'd be really interested to know in that I am not convinced that the key change is real. I have always thought that the key change was a take that has been pitched up, because if you really listen to Claire's vocals, there is a slight ping chickmonkey to it.
Yes.
And it also says wonders to me, and so much that when she's done it live, because they never sang it live once back in the day. There is no televised performance of All Out of Love live. It's all mimed. But when she did do it live on the My Wildest Dreams tour, it was in a lower key. So I would love to pick someone's brains. And to be honest, I imagine they probably honestly say that as well. But it's so high. The fall apart like I used to do is in the rafters of her vocal. And it, to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it sounds like it's just been pitched up.
Do you know, I was just about to mention the key change, because the key change is epic.
Yeah.
But you are right. I listened back to the song earlier just to check it was still as fabulous as I thought it was. It was. But you are right. Her voice, if you could compare it to any song from Steps in terms of the tone of her voice, is like Better Best Forgotten. And we know that their vocals were pitch changed in that song, because all the girls said we couldn't sing like that. They made us sound silly by doing that to our voices. And it does sound like that. So maybe that is a revelation.
I think it's... I stand by it. Like, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I'll fully apologise for it. But I would love to know if the key change was recorded live or it was, it was pitched up.
Okay.
On
we
this topic...
We're going to find that out.
We're going to find that out. I want to talk about the video, Craig. Can you start us off with the concept of what... Because this video is high camp. Like, up until this point, they'd done DJ, which was kind of a basic, we're going to Ibiza video. They'd done Half a Heart, which was the CGI box, all the rage sort of like animation that was at this early 2000s thing. And
stuck in a Windows screensaver.
Stuck in a Windows screensaver. Then we've got this. Can you just explain what's going on in this video?
Okay, so I would describe this as H and Claire and friends going to an immersive Cluedo experience. Yeah. Because that is... So there's this... And it wasn't clear to me that this was happening when I first saw it. There's these two timelines going on. I might even still be wrong, but they turn up at this mansion, and they're telling this story. You don't hear it, but they're telling this story about a murder that happened, but they're also all playing the roles of the story they're telling, and so it's and so. I'm really struggling to verbalize, but the styling between the two eras isn't different enough for it to be really obvious of what's happening when. So you have H and Claire, they're sort of in the study with their friends, and again you're sort of thinking, if they need all their friends with them, why not just have Steps? It reinforces that thing that they need people with them. But anyway, they're there, but then you're also cutting to drama. H dancing around the kitchen with the waiters, Claire at the dinner table having a sort of hissy fit and throwing a napkin, and then someone dies and there's a chalk outline. Someone's already put the chalk outline around the body, and Claire's got the candlestick behind her back.
It's just the candlestick behind the back is absolutely amazing, and the camera like pans in on it really, really quickly. Sorry to interject, but just so many things to unpack in what you've just said. In that, for me, my biggest takeaway from the video is two things, isn't it? It feels like the sequel to It's the Way You Make Me Feel. It is totally. So it is. Someone looked at that video And they went, right, we've done the beautiful ballroom version of it. Now let's do the Cluedo version of it. Everything about it. The dance sequence is filmed in a room that looks so similar. You put those videos side by side, it feels like its darker cousin.
Yeah.
Which leads me to the point of like the whole story-led video thing was such a thing in the 90s, and it's such a thing that bands like S Club and All Stars and the Spice Girls and Steps in particular did so well. You look at videos like Tragedy, videos like Chain Reaction, videos like Love's Got a Hold on My Heart. The videos that H and Claire had made previously did not follow that format. They were just, we're edgy. It's early 2000s. We're on the beach, or we're in a Windows screensaver. This felt, song-wise and video-wise, just like a Step song. This felt like a Step song in the way it was delivered. And that was probably intentional, because it probably was, we will get to the stats later, but in the way that the singles performed less and less. Maybe it would have been different if this had been the first song out the gate. I don't know. But they wouldn't have wanted that. But with the video, it just, H in the kitchen dancing, it's so funny. It's so unintentionally camp. And talking of the dancing, it is...
I know what's coming.
So insanely difficult. Like, to the point in which that it is so much more complicated in that you wouldn't be able to put this in a little sleeve like the old Steps dances.
No.
This is like you'd need a class to learn it. And there was even like an old footage that H put out recently in which that it was like old camera footage that he'd done from back in the day. And I am obsessed with this Instagram interaction in that he put it up and it was of him and Claire doing the dance. And Lee, who obviously is not part of it, commented saying like, wow, Claire, those moves, you've never looked that good before, winky face. And it was such like a little nudge to the fact that Claire sometimes has struggled with the dancing and been very honest about that. And she's in this video, they give her like Britney J-Lo level choreo. The dance break, Craig, can you just...
there is.
Can you just explain it? Because it's not in some of the videos on YouTube.
No.
You have to look for it specifically.
Yeah, so you have to look for the video that's about just over 4.5 minutes long, because there is, before the breakdown, before the key change chorus, there is a very of its time dance break. Would you say this is an unnecessary dance break?
No, this is so necessary. Insert sound effect.
I would describe the dance break. There's lots of smashing plates. It sounds like, Jumanji, when they go near the board game and they start to hear the drums. That's what the dance break sounds like to me, the Jumanji drums, with plates smashing around it. And I don't know why it's there. I don't know why they did that. It's so bizarre. It's not in the radio edit. It's not in the single, but it is in the video.
But it's also been cut out of what is listed on YouTube as the official video, because I watched it through and I went, where's the dance break? So I had to search deeper into YouTube, go back a few videos. But it was the version that was on music channels at the time. So like TMF or The Hits or The Box or whatever you used to watch. And just, for me, it comes out so left field. Everything else about the video really works. Even though the story is convoluted, even though the whole Cluedo thing with the camp candlestick reveal is a bit silly. The song is amazing. This, oh my God, it's so unintentionally funny because the choreography is really intense, but then the dance break, there's really strange moves. There's lots of crashing of cymbals and plates in the background, like a Greek dance. And they end with this move where it's basically like a shimmy, 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 shimmy. But the shimmy just keeps going. And I swear there's a shot in which that it looks at Claire and I can just see her like, I am so done. Like, I am not here anymore. I love it. I love it so much. This is a slight tangent, but we're talking about that dance break. That is so of its time. but so much
songs,
time
yeah.
of that entire decade, you could probably chart the sort of rise and fall of the inserted dance break into a version that's not on the radio edit. And sometimes it makes the song better. Like, it was definitely a thing that was pioneered by the likes of Janet Jackson and Jennifer
Yeah.
Lopez. It's in
Yeah.
so many of their videos from the sort of 2001, 2, 3 era. But it continued through the whole decade. Then you get the blooming Pussycat Dolls that would put it in every single song. So they've got When I Grow
Yeah.
Up. I'm sorry, the definitive version of When I Grew Up is the version with the dance break in the video. H and Claire led the way, obviously. I think the video is very good. I think it's very classy. I think it stands up now. It doesn't look visually dated. It's just probably stylistically dated because pop videos might not necessarily go in this way. But then some of the videos that people like Sabrina Carpenter have done, like murder mystery things, and like I could see people doing stuff like this today, but it just feels so
I like
time.
I would say of the video, there were my two takeaways from the video in hindsight are, yes, that H dancing with the waiters is a little bit silly, but actually, this was 2002. Men did not dance with men in pop music videos. So to have H, who wasn't openly gay at that, he wasn't out, to have him dancing with male dancers, I thought was a really, a great thing for him to do. It wasn't sexual, but it just didn't happen. And I would say that the video itself is really well shot in terms of the dances, the dance sequence at the end, the camera angles, that it's really dynamic. There's a bit where Claire's skirt flicks over the camera in time with the song. It's meticulously storyboarded and really dynamically filmed. It's shot brilliantly. It's just bizarre. It's very, very, very bizarre.
It's bizarre, but it's brilliant. Right, so Craig, that's what we think. But what happened when this song was released? Because there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah. So the song peaked at number 10. So continued a downward trajectory. DJ number 3, Half a Heart number 8, All Out of Love, Beauty and the Beast number 10. Not a massive seller. Sold 23,000 copies in its first week, but it's not in the top 200 of the year, so not a big seller. And then they release the album, Another You, Another Me, and it peaks at number 58, which I'm not sure.
The time.
It was. I'm not sure at that point it was necessarily a surprise. And this is where we go with All Out of Love. It did feel, and I can understand if they didn't want to release it, it did feel a bit like a last ditch. Nothing else is really sticking, so let's just go back to what people know them for. And I can completely understand why. But also, I suppose in the context of that, you also had a Steps compilation album being released the following week, The Last Dance, which was just a collection of remixes and B-sides. And that peaked at number 57. So slightly embarrassing that H and Claire got out-peaked by a Steps compilation album. But either way, you've got this position where
the stats that the same people bought both.
Bought both.
Clearly.
And I think it just felt like Steps' time, and maybe that genre of pop music, that people were just moving on from it. And I do think the end of Steps was, certainly for me, I can say, the end of Steps for me was a point when I did start to transition to new music, because I'd been a fan of Steps for 4 years. And suddenly it was like, okay, well, what now? And I started listening to other artists and different types of music. And H and Claire did feel like, particularly with All Out of Love, a bit of a backwards. It was looking backwards, not forwards. And there's a part of me that thinks maybe if Steps had continued, I don't think they would have underperformed to that level, but would a fourth Steps album, studio album, would it have continued their run of success? I'm not sure it would have done, because I just think the industry was starting to change.
I'm inclined to agree. I feel like as horrific as it was for them to split, I know we're talking about Steps now, not H and Claire, but you can't talk about one without talking about the other. As sad as it was for them to split at that time, and as heartbreaking, and all the iconic moments in the reunion documentary of Lisa going, "It's really hot." It probably needed to happen at that time because they went out on a high. They went out with a record-breaking career and run of singles, and they probably would have been in jeopardy of not continuing that run. And I feel like a Fourth Steps album would have performed with the same trajectory as what the Fourth S Club album did. If you look at the trajectory that had of a much lower chart position for the album, slightly underperforming singles, they'd had a greatest hits album which had gone multi-platinum. So my hope for the song has always been that we would get a live version with H and Claire again, or in some sort of incredible way, we'd get like a remixed Steve Anderson version that was a step song. Like, I would genuinely love someone bringing to the table, like, let's re-record this song, but with the five of us, and let's distribute the vocals because it was the same writers. But with the performance of the song, it didn't surprise me that it got to number 10. What did surprise me was the album underperformed that much. Like, I didn't think it was going to go number 1, but I remember being... it sounds really sad, but I feel like I was holding on to H and Claire. Me and my brother held on to H and Claire really tightly because it felt like it was still Steps. And I wasn't really ready to let go. I remember following the online website back in the days before social media. We used to check websites. I checked the H and Claire website loads for updates, and there was one that was just like, "We're taking a little break. Thank you so much for your support." And I honestly was so sad and devastated that the album didn't do that well, because it meant that we wouldn't get a tour. It meant that they would get dropped. And also, a lot of people might not remember, but like, they signed a millions of pound record deal for like 5 albums, which seems bonkers in today's market. But it was an ambitious record deal. Like, it really was. And it felt very sad at the time. And I feel for them. I'm just glad that time has been very kind to this song. And I'm also glad that time has been kind to their discography, because I do think that there's some really good stuff on that album. Some really lovely ballads, really great vocals. I mean, it's not an album I'm going to listen to on a daily or weekly basis, but if I've ever gone back to any of the songs, I always enjoy it. And this song is such a banger. Like, I really...
I agree. I really like the album. I probably listen to it more than you do. I do listen to it quite regularly. For me, what you hear from the album, and I don't think this will come as a surprise because it's exactly what the singles were. No one really knew who H and Claire were as a duo. There's stuff that Steps would never have recorded. There are lots of mid-tempos and ballads, but there is stuff that is very much influenced by Steps. And you come out the other side of it and you just think, I don't really know what they were about musically. And I think that, but I enjoy the album for what it is. I like a ballad. I like a mid-tempo. I like the song that sounds like a rip-off of the Anastasia. There's a cover of a Jessica Simpson song. It's
all I want to do is an Anastasia song. Like,
and they didn't release another single after this. They disbanded shortly afterwards. But I think they were going to release Another You, Another Me as the next single. Wouldn't have done anything, but it's not a great single choice for that. I just don't think that would have helped in any way whatsoever.
I like Another You, Another Me, but it wouldn't have helped the album. I think if it might have been better as a second single choice, you never know. But I think, as you've said, diverse. There's songs on there on the album like Nothing at All, Too Close to Tears, All I Want Is You, that are just stylistically completely different. For me, the ballads and the mid-tempos fit together as a collection of like 8 or so songs. However, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just throwing that number out there. But the up-tempos are bonkers. They are all over the place because they didn't know where to put them. Because pop was changing. 2002 was a real post-Steps and Spice Girls world in the UK. And they kind of just got a bit lost. And I remember, there was quite a few solo acts at the time from bands. I'm thinking people like Rachel Stevens. I'm thinking people like Kim Marsh. And a lot of them actually came out with a really clear idea of who they were going to be as a pop star. And H and Claire just weren't that. So it was a bit of a sad end. But if you just take the song out of it and the video out of it, and we look back on it now, like for me, chef's kiss. And it's one of my most listened to Steps / H and Claire / Steps solo songs. It really is. I love it. Right. If you want to listen to All Out of Love by H and Claire, you can find it on all streaming platforms. And where can they find us?
So Can't Stop the Pop has a website where there are now over 500 reviews, including this song, and Beauty and the Beast, of course, which you can find at can'tstopthepop.com.
We're also on social media. I am Matt_Atkins9 on Instagram, and you can also find us on TikTok at Can't Stop the Pop Podcast, where we basically do this, but in 60-second clips.
And I am Can't Stop _the Pop on Instagram and TikTok. And we're also at Can't Stop the Pop on YouTube because we do have some video content now.
Do subscribe to all our channels, get in touch, let us know what you think of the song, what you think of the show, and please leave us a review, but only a good one, wherever you get your podcast from, because we really do love to hear from you.
Thank you so much for listening. Welcome back to season 3. Let's do it all over again, and join us next time for more
Can't Stop the Pop.